Have you ever wondered how you breathed before you ever took your first breath? Not after birth, not your first cry into the world, but before that, when your body floated in the sacred silence of the womb, sustained by something far deeper than lungs, ribs, or willpower. What if I told you that your purest energy, your truest self, was most alive before you were born, when breath wasn't mechanical but mystical? Long before the world taught you how to survive, you already knew how to thrive, not by chasing or striving, but by simply being. And that ancient intelligence, that silent force that kept you alive without effort, is still within you. Dormant. Patient. Waiting. Today, we embark on a journey that doesn't just involve air flowing in and out of your lungs. No, this is a return. A remembrance. We are diving into a mystery older than language, older than memory, older even than time itself. The breath before breath. This isn't about modern breathwork trends or calming techniques. This is about the original breath, the sacred rhythm that pulsed through you before thought, before fear, before flesh. Across sacred scrolls, hidden yogic scriptures, and mystical traditions from ancient Egypt to the Himalayan peaks, sages and mystics whispered about this hidden breath. They spoke not only of the first breath and the last breath, but of a third breath, silent, eternal, and invisible, the one that connects the seen and unseen. The breath of life before life. In this video, we will peel back the veils of time to rediscover what it truly means to breathe like you did before you were born. We'll explore the spiritual roots of this hidden force, decode ancient teachings from forgotten worlds, and most importantly, we'll awaken your ability to reconnect with it. You'll learn how to unlock the dormant energy that formed you in the dark, and activate it once again. But to step into this mystery, you must surrender everything you think you know about breathing. Because what's coming next will not only change how you breathe, it may just change how you live. Are you ready to remember? To truly understand the mystery of breathing like you did before you were born, we must first travel backward, through centuries, across continents, and into the sacred chambers of forgotten wisdom. Ancient civilizations, though separated by geography and language, all carried fragments of the same secret, that breath is not merely air, it is spirit, life force, divine memory. In ancient Sanskrit, the word pra referred not just to breath, but to the vital energy that permeates the universe. It is the force that animates all living beings, the invisible thread connecting soul to source. The Chinese called it qi, the flow of life through meridians and energy centers. The Egyptians had ka, the vital essence that left the body at death. The Greeks, too, spoke of pneuma, a word that meant both breath and spirit. And in the Hebrew tradition, ruach held the same dual meaning, the breath of God moving over the waters of creation, the divine inhalation that sparked life into dust. But there's a deeper layer to these teachings, one often overlooked. These ancient cultures didn't just revere breath as a sign of life, they revered what came before it. In many esoteric texts, there is the idea of a pre-breath state, a condition of being that exists in the womb, or even before incarnation, where the soul is suspended in unity, in silence, in oneness. It is said that before we were born into form, we existed in rhythm with the breath of the cosmos, not breathing in the way we understand it now, but being breathed by the universe itself. Mystics and yogis across time have spoken of this inner breath, a breathless breath, that flows not through the lungs but through the subtle body. In the ancient Vedic tradition, advanced sages meditated not on inhalation or exhalation, but on the pause between the two, the still point, the gateway to the infinite. They believed this was where the divine entered. Similarly, Tibetan monks practiced tummo breathing not to fill the lungs, but to awaken a dormant flame in the belly, the inner fire of enlightenment. Why, then, has this knowledge faded from the collective mind? Why is it that in modern times, breathing is reduced to a biological reflex, stripped of its mystical dimension? The answer is as complex as it is tragic. As humanity shifted toward materialism, mechanization, and external validation, we forgot to look inward. In pursuit of progress, we abandoned presence. The breath became shallow, distracted, no longer a bridge to the divine, but a background process lost beneath the noise of the world. Esoteric schools guarded this wisdom in secret, afraid it would be misused or misunderstood. Initiates were taught that to access the original breath, one had to first unlearn everything taught by the surface world. Silence was key. Slowness was sacred. Stillness was the door. Philosophers like Plotinus, who taught that the soul remembers its divine origin, believed that the key to reconnection lay not in striving outward, but in returning inward. The mystic Jacob Boehme described the soul's descent from the eternal breath into the limitations of flesh, and the human journey as one of remembering the breath that came before. These ideas aren't just poetic, they're precise. The ancient breath isn't metaphor, it's a mode of awareness, a frequency of being. And once we understand that, we can begin to reclaim it, not through effort, but through surrender, through listening, through remembering. To begin unlocking the mystery of the breath before breath, we must first unearth the essence of what was breathing you before your lungs ever inflated. In the womb, nestled within a sacred aquatic temple, you were not breathing in the way you understand now. You weren't drawing air through your nostrils or expanding your chest. Instead, you were immersed in a state of pure being, connected to your mother through the umbilical cord, a shimmering lifeline of blood, nutrients, and primal intelligence. Life flowed into you without effort. You were sustained, nourished, and cradled by something greater, something that breathed for you. But what was that something? Was it merely biology? Or was it a whisper of a deeper truth, that you were once in complete surrender to the rhythm of the divine? In many mystical traditions, this prenatal state is seen as the closest thing to union with the source. You were not yet burdened by thoughts, labels, or fears. There was no separation. You were one with the flow of existence. In essence, you were being breathed by the cosmos itself. Now here's where the mystery deepens. The ancient sages believed that this breath still exists within you. Not in the lungs, not in the chest, but in the subtle body, the energetic blueprint that overlays your physical form. This is where the concept of the inner breath or sacred breath comes in. It's often described as a current, a pulse, a wave of consciousness that moves beneath your awareness. You may not feel it with your five senses, but it's there, animating you even now. This inner breath does not follow the in and out rhythm we're taught to observe. Instead, it moves in spirals. It flows like water, like light. It expands and contracts in accordance with your soul state, not your oxygen levels. When you are fearful, it constricts. When you are peaceful, it expands. And when you are fully present, no past, no future, just being, this breath becomes most alive. Many esoteric schools refer to this force as the primal wave, or the zero-point breath, the breath that arises from stillness, not movement. In Taoist philosophy, it's the moment of Wuji, the undifferentiated void before duality begins. It's the space between inhale and exhale, where neither exists and both are possible. That is the gateway, the moment of mystery where life enters from the infinite. Imagine for a moment the ocean. The surface may rise and fall, churn and crash, but deep beneath, there's a steady pulse, unchanging, eternal. That is the nature of this inner breath. It is the breath you once knew without knowing. And though you have been conditioned to forget, it has never stopped flowing within you. In fact, some mystics believe this breath is the very signature of your soul. It is unique to you, just as a fingerprint is. When you are aligned with it, you feel powerful, intuitive, calm, and clear. When you are disconnected from it, you feel restless, anxious, or numb. This explains why so many people today feel spiritually adrift. They are breathing, yes, but not living. Not being breathed by the force that once sustained them in sacred silence. But how do we reconnect with it? How do we reawaken something that exists beyond words, beyond air, beyond thought? The path begins not with effort, but with slowing down. With observing the pauses. With feeling the space between breaths rather than the breaths themselves. And from that space, something extraordinary begins to emerge, an awareness not of breath, but of presence. This, then, is the breath before breath, not a technique, but a state of being. A doorway back to the original energy that created you. In the next section, we'll dive deeper into this enigma, exploring the paradoxes and hidden truths of this ancient wisdom, and how the breath has been misunderstood, misused, and yet, remains the most sacred key to awakening your purest energy. To go deeper into the mystery of the breath before breath, we must now turn inward, toward the paradoxes and secrets long obscured by time and translation. Because here lies one of the greatest misunderstandings in spiritual practice, the idea that breathing is only a function of survival. In truth, it is a bridge, a gateway between matter and spirit, between the visible and the invisible. Breath is not just what sustains life, it is what transmits the frequency of life itself. Ancient mystics knew this. But what they also knew, and what we've largely forgotten, is that the breath you take now is merely a shadow of a deeper breath that never began and will never end. The breath before breath is eternal. It is not interrupted by silence. In fact, silence is its true form. It exists beyond polarity, beyond inhale or exhale. It is the breath of the soul. Many spiritual traditions point to a sacred moment just before birth when the soul crosses the veil and enters the body. Some say there is a whisper, a divine contract made in stillness. In Kabbalistic teachings, it is believed that the breath of God, neshama, is gently placed into the body like a flame being passed from candle to candle. This moment marks the transition from the eternal into the temporal. But something is lost in that crossing, something we're meant to remember, not learn. And that is the breath that once held us in its cradle. It is no coincidence that when someone passes away, we say they have taken their last breath. But few reflect on what happens after that, or before the first. In many Eastern traditions, it is taught that just as we return to the breathless state in death, so too did we come from it. It is a circle: birth, breath, silence, breath, death, and back again. This is why the breath is sacred. It bookmarks the journey of the soul. Even modern science has begun to brush against this ancient truth. Studies have shown that the breath influences the nervous system, heart rhythms, even brain waves. But what science can't yet quantify is what breath carries, what it transmits. Yogis say it is karma. Taoists say it is chi, mystics call it light codes, shamans call it spirit wind. And somewhere beneath all those names lies one simple truth: breath is consciousness in motion. Here's a paradox few dare to contemplate: the more we try to control the breath, the further we move from its sacred essence. In ancient teachings, true mastery didn't come from manipulating breath patterns but from releasing into the breathless space. The pause between inhale and exhale, that empty, formless moment, is where the eternal lives. It is where your soul speaks. It is where creation is born. And this leads us to a subtle yet profound insight: breath is not something you do. It is something that is done through you. Just like thoughts rise and fall without command, so too does the true breath emerge from stillness. The more we listen, not with ears, but with awareness, the more we attune to it. The key is not in changing the breath, but in surrendering to it. Feeling it not just as air, but as vibration, as memory, as origin. There's a reason so many ancient initiatory practices included silence, fasting, and breath observation. These weren't meant to purify the body, but to peel back the illusions of separation. To bring the initiate back into alignment with the source of life itself. When you breathe as you did before you were born, you are no longer merely a body, you become a vessel of cosmic remembrance. Every inhale becomes a returning. Every exhale, a release into the infinite. And so, this is where the deeper work begins, not in effort, but in stillness. In letting the breath lead you back to your purest energy. In the next section, we will bridge this mystical understanding into the practical, how you can begin to experience this breath in your daily life, and how it can transform not just how you breathe, but how you exist. Now that we've peeled back the mystical veil and glimpsed the hidden nature of the breath before breath, the question becomes, how do we live this wisdom? How do we reconnect, not just intellectually, but experientially, with the breath that once sustained us in silence, before the world laid its heavy hands upon our spirit? The answer, though simple in appearance, is deeply transformative. We must remember how to be still, how to listen, and how to allow ourselves to be breathed once again. Begin with awareness. Not just of breath, but of the space around the breath. Find a quiet place. No music. No distractions. Sit or lie down, but with intention, not lazily, but reverently, as if entering a sacred temple. Close your eyes. And instead of trying to breathe deeply or in a particular pattern, simply observe. Watch the breath as it rises. Watch it as it falls. Then, direct your attention to the pause, that infinitesimal moment between inhale and exhale, and again between exhale and inhale. Don't try to extend it. Don't manipulate it. Just witness it. That space is the portal. That stillness is the residue of the divine breath, the one that held you in the womb, the one that still surrounds you like an unseen atmosphere of spirit. As you practice this observation, you may begin to feel a subtle shift, your body softens, your thoughts quiet, your energy stabilizes. This is not imagination. This is resonance. You are starting to align with your original rhythm, the one that existed before language, before conditioning, before fear. As this deep presence unfolds, allow yourself to feel the breath moving through more than just your lungs. Feel it in your spine, your heart, your fingertips. Imagine it flowing through the blueprint of your soul, restoring the forgotten architecture of your original self. You may feel warmth. You may feel space. You may even feel emotion rising, grief, peace, joy, for this breath carries memory. It is not just a practice. It is a return. One powerful technique to deepen this experience is to place one hand over your heart, and the other over your navel. As you breathe, feel the connection between the two. This bridges the place of your spiritual knowing with the place of your physical origin. It grounds the cosmic into the body. With each breath, silently say, I remember. That's it. Nothing more. No effort. Just remembrance. This simple act, when practiced daily, begins to dissolve layers of conditioning that have kept you from feeling your purest energy. And here lies the secret: your truest power is not found in force, but in alignment. The more you harmonize with the breath before breath, the more your life reflects its purity. Decisions become clearer. Anxiety begins to dissolve. Creativity flows effortlessly. Relationships deepen, not through control, but through presence. You begin to radiate something subtle yet undeniable, authentic energy. The kind that draws people in without a word. The kind that can shift the atmosphere in a room. Because you are no longer chasing energy, you are embodying it. Of course, the mind will resist. It will tell you this is too simple, or that nothing is happening. That's okay. The mind is not designed to understand the breath before breath. Only the soul recognizes it. So be gentle with yourself. Be patient. This is not a technique to master. It is a sacred rhythm to rejoin. A frequency to remember. With time, this practice becomes more than a moment of stillness, it becomes a way of living. You begin to breathe in conversation, in movement, in solitude, in chaos, from this deeper place. You are no longer pulled into the surface waves of life, because your roots are anchored in the ocean beneath. You breathe as you did before you were born, and in doing so, you awaken the essence of who you truly are. And now, as we draw this journey to a close, take one more breath, not the kind you force, but the kind that arises naturally when the body softens and the soul listens. Let that breath carry the weight of everything you've just uncovered, wisdom older than the stars, buried not in books, but in your very being. This is not a conclusion in the traditional sense. This is a threshold. You are not walking away with knowledge. You are walking back into remembrance. You see, this has never been about learning something new. It's about peeling back the noise, the programming, the tension, until what remains is the silent, sacred breath that has always been there, beneath the surface. That breath, the one before the first gasp of air after birth, is the breath of pure existence. The pulse of the eternal. It was there in the womb, in the still waters of your becoming. It is there now, waiting behind every distraction, every fear, every thought. patient, eternal, undeniably yours. You are not a seeker chasing light, you are a vessel that contains it. The breath before breath is your direct link to that inner light, that original fire. It is the divine intelligence that formed your bones, the rhythm that spun your cells into sacred geometry, the force that knew your name long before it was ever spoken aloud. When you breathe from this place, when you remember this place, your energy becomes unshakable. Your presence becomes healing. Your life begins to move in harmony with unseen currents that support your highest path. Think about it. How much of your life has been lived in reaction? In striving? In forgetting? How often have you searched for clarity, peace, or connection in external sources, while this ancient breath, this silent guide, waited within, untouched and uninvited? The world taught you to fill your lungs with anxiety, with speed, with control. But the sacred breath is not found in effort. It lives in the spaces in between, in the pauses, in the emptiness, in the nothing that births everything. This is not a philosophy. This is a living technology of the soul. And every time you return to the breath before breath, you're not just calming your nervous system, you're realigning your entire existence. You are reactivating your divine blueprint. You are stepping back into the flow of original consciousness, the current of creation itself. This is not a philosophy. This is a living technology of the soul. And every time you return to the breath before breath, you're not just calming your nervous system, you're realigning your entire existence. You are reactivating your divine blueprint. You are stepping back into the flow of original consciousness, the current of creation itself. But remember, this path is not linear. There will be days you forget. Days you return to shallow breathing, to overwhelm, to doubt. That's okay. This breath does not punish or withhold. It does not measure your worth by how often you remember. It only waits, with infinite patience. And the moment you return, even if it's just for one conscious inhale, it embraces you as if you never left.